What's going on, y'all? Episode 30, Let's Be Real podcast, man. We are finally back. Man, had work travel I was on, had vacation that I was on, which was amazing. Got to watch the Super Bowl in Hawaii. So, forever grateful for that. But good to be back home. Good to be back on the podcast. And so, look, now we're hitting the ground and we're going, man. NBA season is in full swing now with the All-Star game just wrapping up. And obviously, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Super Bowl, biggest takeaways from that, and just kind of what I saw from it. And like I said, go into some NBA stuff with the All Star game, and then wrap up with just some NFL kind of headlines and some different storylines that we've been seeing. But look, as y'all know, we always start the episode with look, you know what it is, with the wine, man. And so today, man, it's an all right wine. It's so today what I have is an Ermita de San Lorenzo Gran Selleccion, and it's from 2014. It's a Grenacha, which look, I've done one of these before already, so you know it's a Spanish Grenache. This one, man, I give it about a 6.5, 6.6, maybe a 6.7 out of 10. Bold and dry, like I like it. Little more acidic than I like it. You're definitely gonna get dark fruits, get some vanilla with it. Um, but yeah, just for the price, man, it's about $15. If you're looking for just a little something different, I would say give it a try. But I definitely wouldn't write home about it. It's an all right wine. And so, but look, man, we got it. So we're gonna drink it, and we're gonna get into the Super Bowl. So look, man, starting off, obviously, man, Eagles, Chiefs, Super Bowl, and man, Eagles put it on them. Absolutely put it on them. And look, anybody who watches knows I picked the Chiefs to win this game. I thought it was going to be. I don't think anybody thought they. I don't think anybody saw a blowout coming. But so I think a lot of people thought it was going to be a close game. And for me, my analysis was in a close game. Do I trust Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, or do I trust Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts? I went with Mahomes and Andy Reid. Unfortunately, it was not a close game. And so we're going to get into it, man. We're going to start off on the losing side. We're going to start off with the Chiefs. And something I do want to preface before we really get into it, what I want to preface with is on the Chiefs side, man, just because over this last about week, over the last week now, I've seen a lot of just, the shows and social media and just a lot of discourse around this Chiefs team. And what I will say, did they get it? Did they get it? Just their teeth kicked in the Super Bowl? Yes, but let's not forget this is the best attempt at a three-peat we have ever seen from any team. And so you now look, I'm not giving them credit for getting to the Super Bowl and losing, especially getting blown out. But the fact is, we have never seen a team who had back-to-back Super Bowl championships get to the Super Bowl a third time. And so everybody who's out here talking about, oh, it's not the same cheese, I don't know, this might be done. Stop. This is the best 3-year stretch from any team we've ever seen. And so just want to preface it with that, man, just because I think that's getting lost in kind of the hot take kind of culture we're in right now. And so I just wanted to get that out the way. And now, look, we're going to get to the game, and we're going to start off on the Chiefs side, man, like I said, and as far as who's most to blame. And so starting off, man, I think the number one, I think, is kind of an easy one. I think a lot of people are going to kind of say this was the big game changer, and it's the Chiefs O-line, man. Look, left tackle for them has been a struggle all year. They moved Tooney out there, and he had done well. But look, the reason why he's a guard and not a tackle is because when you go up against elite edge rushers, they're just so much more athletic. And that obviously was apparent. And it wasn't just there, man. It was the whole O-line. So obviously they get a big chunk of the blame as far as um, for the Chiefs' loss. And look, credit to the Eagles' defense as well. Like the fact, and we're going to get into it, but the fact they could rush four and get pressure all game, and just keeping their lanes, everything is incredible. Like credit to them. And so, but from the Chiefs side, O line, that I would say they get the slight edge as far as most blame. And then look, I think this is maybe where people might disagree with me, might agree with me. I think in second, man, it's a share between Mahomes and Andy Reid, and it's not a far gap from the O line. So I'll start with obviously Mahomes under pressure all game. We covered that with the O line, but there was also plays where he got out the pocket and made throws that we typically see him make, and he was just a little off. And so, you know, when we've come to a point where with Mahomes, we're almost expecting like, okay, he's gonna if he's out of the pocket, he's gonna make a play here, and he just couldn't really get there. Underthrew Kelsey once, uh, threw a little far for D Hop, and and catchable balls, yes, but also not put where they could have been put and where you would expect Mahomes to put them. And so what I'll say is, man, it is the first time I can definitively say it looked like Mahomes was, I don't know if it was flustered, nervous, something, but it just something with Mahomes was just a little off. And you could see it. And again, first time I've ever seen that from him. And from the Andy Reid point of view, man, look, I was of the belief that a lot of this season, the offense was very just, hey, we're going to try to get Xavier Worthy going and get him involved because we're going to need him. And we're going to just kind of do what we need to do to get a win and, be as plain Jane as we can. And we're going to work on the things we need to work on with the expectation that when they got into these big moments that he had, you know, the secondary playbook of, okay, yeah, this is what our real offense is. And he just there he it didn't look like they had that. And now getting into the hole like they did, maybe that changes things, but it just the play calling was not up to par what I would expect from Andy Reid. The quarterback play was not up to par from what I would expect from Patrick Mahomes. And is it possible that just the possibility of a three-peat and doing something no team has ever done before, maybe the moment kind of got to him, maybe. But yeah, I just, again, so that's where I'm chalking up the blame. Those three, well, one full position group in O line, and then Mahomes and Reed, divvy that up however you want. But very close as far as the blame there. And so, look, from the Chiefs' point of view, it's what's next, right? Obviously, who knows if they're ever going to get a chance to go for a three-peat again. It's not something we see very often. So, we'll have to kind of see what happens there. But from a standpoint of where do they go next? Look, I think the Chiefs aren't in as bad of a situation as some people think. Like I said earlier, if you go on Twitter or if you listen to some of these, talk shows, the sky's fallen, the Chiefs are done. It's over for them. And that I completely disagree with. I mean, they do have some big free agents. Obviously, they need to address left tackle. That's one of their biggest things. But one of the things that they can do is, look, Mahomes has the ability to basically restructure his deal every year. And he can restructure it and free up about $40 million in cap space this year, which I assume they're going to do. And I assume they're going to take that money to bolster that O-line. As far as kind of bright spots for him, obviously, look, Xavier Worthy, huge bright spot in the Super Bowl, caught some big passes. Obviously, it was when the game was pretty much decided. I'm not going to say it was like stat padding because, look, you played till the end of the game. And, you never know what's going to happen. Crazy things have happened. So you take what you can get. But Xavier Worthy had a strong finish to the season, so that's great. Obviously, Rashee Rice coming back will be huge for them. My assumption is he's probably going to be suspended for the first part of the season from back before this year when he had that, street racing incident. So I assume he's probably going to get some kind of suspension. But when he's back, Xavier Worthy taking the top off, that's just going to open up a lot. And so obviously we'll get into Travis Kelce, but he may be heading out, maybe staying. But I think with Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice, the offense is it's only going to start looking better with two young receivers. And look, Rashee Rice was the guy that coming into this year, everyone was saying, oh yeah, like that's going to be their number one receiver. Like that's going to be the focal point of the receiving core. And so, obviously you have those two bright spots. So I don't think they need to go out, get weapons or anything like that. I think, like I said, they definitely need to address the O-line. And I think Mahomes freeing up that cap space for him will definitely help. What I will say is if you're an AFC team, and I'm looking at you, Bills and Ravens, this is the year you got to do it. This coming year, this is your year to win the Super Bowl. Because if you look at it, man, the Chiefs, 3 straight Super Bowls, that's 3 straight, 20-game seasons. That's a lot. And I think this year you're probably going to see it take a toll on them. And look, after they got routed by the Bucs in the Super Bowl, they had 1 year where that's the year, I mean, granted, AFC Championship game, I think that one's the one that went to overtime. Like, it's hard to say that's a disappointing season or a down season, but that is literally their down season for the Chiefs. And we saw the down season after they had got routed in that Super Bowl. And now, again, you're adding Super Bowl hangover, 3 straight Super Bowls, that's 3 straight extended seasons. I would assume if the Chiefs are going to get got in the AFC, this is the year you got to get it. And so Bills, Ravens, again, I would say this is the year that if you're going to win a Super Bowl, and I think both teams, at least one of them will definitely win a Super Bowl. Maybe both, because look, it's not like if the Chiefs don't make it next year, they're going to run off another, 4, 5, 6 straight Super Bowls. Like, it's not going to happen, but you got to get them when they're most vulnerable. And I would say this season coming up is probably going to be their most vulnerable, just from the letdown and the extra games over the last 3 seasons. So, yeah. But anyways, man, let's move on to the other side, man. Look, like I said, pick the Chiefs, but as an Eagles fan, I'm happy with this. And so, Eagles, man, going to the winning side. Just look, I had in one of the last podcasts I did, I don't know if it's the last one or one before, I explained what the Eagles were going to need to do to win. And to a T, it's exactly what they did. Look, the D-line was going to have to get pressure. They were going to have to make Mahomes uncomfortable, and they're going to have to keep that lane integrity. And so if you watch that game, every time they got that pressure and Mahomes tried to step up, he couldn't. When he tried to get out of the pocket, he couldn't. And so, look, it's incredible discipline from the D-line. And just, if you could give the MVP to a position group, the D-line would have been the Super Bowl MVPs. Because they set the tone from the beginning and basically allowed it to where, and we're going to get into Jalen in a little bit, but Jalen didn't really have to do too much. Like, he did what he needed to do. He made the throws he needed to. Look, like we said, the Chiefs were going to take away what you do best. And they did. They took away Saquon. And so with that, Jalen did have to make some throws. A lot easier to make some throws when your defense is playing the way they are. And, Jalen made one mistake. But outside of that, I mean, he played a good game. He played the perfect game for how the game went, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think Jalen was dominant in the game, but I don't think he needed to be because of how dominant that defense was. So Jalen played the perfect game for that game. And so, yeah, man, but that's, look, it's what they needed to. And the thing that I had questions on with the Eagles was, one, if Hurts is going to be able to make the throws. Again, I thought it was going to be a close game. Turns out when you're routing a team, doesn't matter if you make the throws or not. Doesn't matter what you're doing, really, because again, the Chiefs couldn't move the ball. But the one thing I was really worried about was the secondary, the young secondary. And look, credit to them, they played great. And again, it makes it really easy. I thought what could have happened was just with those, them being so anxious and everything, run some double moves, beat them over the top. And you can't run a double move if you can't get the time to allow the route to go. And so, again, goes back to the D line just playing great. And look, the Cooper DeJean with the pick six, like being in the right place, right time, bad throw from Mahomes. Um, yeah, just they played the exact game that they needed to play in order to win. And so credit to them, man. And so we're going to move into, we had the Chiefs most to blame. Who gets the most credit for the Eagles win? And look, I don't know how y'all feel about this. Most credit for this Eagles win goes to Howie Roseman, the GM of the Eagles, because man, this roster is crazy. And look, I said it before that they're the most talented team in the NFL, but man, when you got guys like Jalen Carter, who, you fell in the draft and had some character questions, and you take a flyer on him because, hey, if we can get him in our system, we can figure it out. And just, again, it's when you look at all the talent that the Eagles have on this roster, and look, it's not like Jalen's on a rookie deal or anything. Like, Jalen's getting paid, and they're still able to put the talent that they have on this team on it. Is just, it's crazy to think that Howie is playing with the same salary cap as all these other teams. Now, look, have they do they have a lot of dead years on contracts that are going to be coming up here in the next 3 or 4 years? Yep, they sure do. And do they have some guys who are on rookie deals who are going to be asking to get paid? They do. But I mean, Howie has squeezed every ounce of this salary cap to be, again, to give the Eagles the most talented team over, at least for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And so he gets massive credit for that. Second, Vic Fangio, man. Look, I thought that was going to be the matchup. I mean, Mahomes was undefeated against Vic's defenses. And look, Vic, credit to him. And again, it goes to the D line. I mean, I don't know how much credit you give the DC for the defensive line just being able to rush four all night and get pressure. But look, Vic, I mean, didn't call any blitzes, so he knew that they were going to get pressure. And so he gets credit for that because offense is already at a man disadvantage. And so when you're able to get the pressure they got with four and drop everybody else back, again, it's just dominant performance. Third, and you can flip Vic in this one, but the D-line. Again, D-line, just incredible the way they played. Being able to rush four all night and get, I think, 6 sacks. Josh Sweat was an absolute monster. Like, I think for me, he was the front runner for Super Bowl MVP, probably until about midway through the third when Jalen got, some kind of not needed, but it's football. Like I said, with the Mahomes stuff, you play to the end. You got to give what the defense, take what the defense gives you. And so I think till about midway through the third, Josh Sweat was probably the Super Bowl MVP until Jalen started getting some numbers. And speaking of Jalen, look, number 4, Jalen, and I'm going to give him like a share in the credit with Saquon, right? And I know some of y'all are probably thinking like, Saquon, like, worst game of the year. It was. But the reason why Jalen could have the game he did outside of just the defense playing so well is, again, the Chiefs took away Saquon, which means it left those receivers that, Jalen was able to find, left them on islands. And so when a defense has to game plan for you so much that it frees up everything, you get some of the credit there. And so I think Jalen, Saquon, I give them about the same amount of credit. And look, we're going to move to kind of same thing. What's next for the Chiefs? What's next for the Eagles, man? And we're going to start with one, do I think the Eagles can repeat? And so I think one of the things, obviously we all love to do is after we see somebody win a Super Bowl or after we see an NBA championship, it's, we always sit there and it's almost like, oh, well, how could they not win next year? Like, look at them. Look at how dominant they are. Like, obviously they're going to win. We did this look with the Nuggets a few years ago in the NBA where it's like, gosh, like, who's going to beat them? And then it turns out, like they're beatable. And, each year is different. Each year, injuries are different. Just the games go differently. And so I think it's easy for us just in sports in general, when we see a team, especially do what the Eagles did in just such a dominant fashion, to be like, oh yeah, like definitely going to three-peat or definitely going to repeat. Like who can beat them? But it's, again, especially with football where it's one game, you have a bad week in the playoffs and you're done. There's a reason why only 2 teams since 2000 have repeated. And it's been the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, arguably the second greatest quarterback and second greatest head coach of all time, and Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and the Patriots, the greatest quarterback of all time and the greatest coach of all time. And again, Eagles have crazy talent, but when you're talking about only 2 teams repeating, and that's who they had on the team, it's not something that, as much as I love Jalen and then there's Sirianni, they're not those guys. And so, I just think it's really easy for us to sit here and say that, but there's a reason why it's been like that. And so I'm not saying they can't. I'm going to go over some reasons why I think they might not, and then I'm going to give you a really big reason why I think they can. And so one of the reasons, just starting on the not side, obviously you have Kellen Moore's heading out, taking the Saints job. I get it. You've been an OC for a long time. You got to do it. I don't like him going to the Saints from his perspective, because I don't think you're set up for success there. But we've seen last year what happens with coordinator turnover. And look, it's the same thing I feel why I'm hesitant with the Lions flipping both coordinators. Like when you lose your coordinators because they were because they become head coaches, typically means they did a really good job. And then when you go to the Super Bowl, you're already so far behind the hiring cycle that, you're not getting the top candidates. And so losing Kellen, that one worries me a little bit, especially after when we saw last year when we flipped coordinators and we had that just meltdown at the end of the year. My next one, man, it's going to be one that I'm sure most people are going to disagree with. But I question, and this isn't the whole team, so I'm going to say what I question, and then I'm going to tell you who I'm not questioning it from. I question the Eagles' hunger next year. And now, excluded from that is Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. Outside of those two, because just from, and look, I'm gonna point out CJ and Gardner Johnson specifically with this, but a lot of just not a lot, but a chunk of the Eagles, a lot of the fans, it seems like they, after the win, it was more so about the fact that they beat the Chiefs and like avenged the last Super Bowl. Like it seemed like that was, with CJ tweeting out, his tweet from back in the day, run it back with, a real field, and then see what happened. That it to me, a chunk of the Eagles is this was more so about like, oh, we got to show them that one was a fluke and that we could win. And so it just seems like it's more about beating the Chiefs than it's about winning the Super Bowl to me. And now, who do you have that with? Who's that team where you're like, oh, we got to show them? Because there is none. Like you won. And so, again, I don't question Jalen. I don't question Saquon. I think those guys, Jalen especially, I think he's going to be locked in. Like I think he wants to win more. And I think that's huge because obviously that's your quarterback. That's the leader of your team. But I do think there's going to be a level of complacency and a lack of hunger from some other guys because there's not going to be that revenge factor for them. And so that's another reason. And then the last reason, the Saquon health thing, man. Look, I get it. It's the best O-line he's ever had. But I think it's only the second healthy season he's ever had. And that can attribute to the O-line. But a lot of handoffs, a lot of carries, a lot of yards, a lot of hits. Typically not great for an aging running back. And so that one scares me because, look, without Saquon, I don't know how great that Eagles offense is when it's not, teams keying on we have to stop Saquon. And so that one worries me as well. Now, for the reason why I think they can repeat on this is I don't see a team in the NFC that worries me. Like, just pure and simple. There is not another team in the NFC that I think can beat the Eagles or that's better than the Eagles. The only team I think that might have a chance would be somebody like Detroit, but I don't know what their coordinator situation looks like. They got 2 brand new coordinators, and we've seen what that can do. I've seen it firsthand. And so I think getting back to the Super Bowl, I can't see a team that would stop us. I think there'd be 2 reasons. Is either one, or maybe 3. One would be injuries. Obviously, Jalen goes down, Saquon goes down, like key guys go down. Obviously, that derails the season. So I could see that. If that happens, it's what it is. Second, the complacency that I talked about. Like if, just we come out not hungry, I could see us not making it. And then the last one is just if it would just be a meltdown. It'd be another meltdown. And, I guess that and complacency, guys, kind of goes hand in hand. But there's no reason we shouldn't at least be back in the Super Bowl. And if you can get to the Super Bowl, you can win the Super Bowl. Like, then it's just you got to be better than the team for one game. For one day, you got to be better. It doesn't matter who the team is, if they're better, if they're worse. But and then just the AFC again, even in the AFC, I don't know. I would say, obviously the Bills, they're going to be better next year. The Ravens are going to be a problem. The Chiefs are still going to be a problem. We'll see what the Bengals do. There's great teams in the AFC, but I don't know if they were to match up Eagles, coming back mostly with the same guys and healthy, I would say the Eagles would probably be favored in any Super Bowl they're in next year if they made it and were healthy. And so that's why I can see them repeating. I think they're built to, if they can stay healthy, and keep that complacency. And if Jalen can, keep the team hungry, I could see them repeating. But again, like I said, it's easy to say it after a Super Bowl win where you dominated, right? But also, let's not forget last year we had a lot of, obviously didn't have Saquon, but still had a far more talented team that got rolled by the Bucs. And so, again, reason why It's only happened twice in the last 25 years, whatever it is. Yeah, 25 years. And so it is hard to do, but I think the Eagles do have, I would say they have a good chance of doing it. And so, look, now kind of moving to player outcomes from this. And so we're going to start with what guy I just talked about, Jalen Hurts, man. And so where does this, because this has been kind of everywhere, where does this rank him now in that quarterback hierarchy in the league? And I would say, to me, I can't put him on. Obviously, Mahomes is still. I don't care what the Super Bowl looked like. Mahomes is still number one, and there's a big gap there. Mahomes won. I think Josh Allen, Lamar, Burrow, 2 through 4. But I think I was ready to put Jaden Daniels at 5. I think from what I saw from him all year and into the playoffs as a rookie, I was ready to put him at 5. I think now with this performance, Jalen can definitely slide into that 5 spot. I think you can. Now, I think, could you still make an argument for Jaden? Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of equated Jalen to this, because if you look, Jalen in the regular season, it's like nothing crazy. Like, he doesn't put up crazy numbers. He had the one season where a couple years ago where he topped in MVP voting, top 2 or 3, whatever it was. But typically, Jalen's not putting up these monster regular seasons. But Super Bowl time, playoff time is when he plays his best. And so I kind of attributed it, or kind of compared him to, he's almost like a Jamal Murray of the NFL, where it's like not an all-star, he's not gonna go down historically as like this great player. But when you look at the postseason, it's like, oh man, this dude's, if you just looked at some of his postseasons, you're like, this guy is one of the top players in the league. And same thing with Jalen. So it's weird, because how much do you weigh the regular season versus how much do you weigh the playoffs? And I know everyone's going to say, oh, well, it's all about winning chips. Doesn't matter. And well, if it's all about winning chips, then Jalen's the second best quarterback in the league, or third behind either Mahomes only if he's second, or behind Mahomes and Matt Stafford, because they're the only people who have rings right now that are active, and not Aaron Rodgers, because but then Aaron Rodgers too, because obviously he's got a ring. And so obviously we take into account the regular season, and we take into account how you perform in the regular season when we talk about these top 5s. And so do I think before the Super Bowl, I didn't think he was top 5. I wouldn't have put him at 5. I think he's got a very credible and legitimate argument that you can put him at that 5 spot now. And look, going to the other side, man, talk about Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, the big thing with him was, if he gets the 3-peat, is he in that GOAT conversation? So obviously he doesn't. So he doesn't get the 3-peat. So we're going to pull that back some. Now, I still probably have him as the second best quarterback ever. Yeah, some have him as third. I don't think you can put him any lower than third at this point, even with this loss. But I do think he is at least out of that conversation for now. But everybody, and again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier with people who are out there talking about like, oh, the GOAT conversation is dead. And it's like, no, it's not. Because look, let's really take a look at this. If Mahomes in the next 5 years wins one Super Bowl, one championship, he is on pace for more than Brady at that point. If he wins one in the next 9 years, he's ahead of Brady on pace. We forget that Brady went 10 years without winning a Super Bowl. Now, again, credit to Brady's longevity, which is weird because I always hear about longevity not mattering for anything. I'm just kidding. But no. Credit to Brady's longevity. He was able to play to 45, play at a high level to 45. And we don't know if Mahomes will do that. Mahomes might not. Mahomes might, play till he only play another 8 years, play till he's 36, 38, whatever. But all we can do is go off of the pace that Brady was at this point in his career. And if Mahomes wins at least one within the next 9 years, he's ahead of pace from Brady. And so, again, I was having a conversation with somebody who said, "Oh no, like there shouldn't be a conversation about it, and he shouldn't be in that conversation." I'm like, well, if he wins one, then he's technically ahead of Brady at that point in the career. And let's not forget, Brady, and look, it was a different era, but Brady was not the quarterback that Mahomes was at this point. Mahomes has more MVPs at this point in their career. They've tied with Super Bowls. Mahomes has one more appearance. Mahomes has more wins. Mahomes has more touchdowns by a significant margin, like something like 120, 150 more touchdowns at this point. And so to say that it's not a possibility, which is a lot of what I've been hearing because of this. And let's not act like Brady didn't have just absolute duds in the playoffs, because he has. And look, even in the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl against the Giants, when were going for the undefeated season, like they scored 14 points, and that was the most prolific offense in the NFL at the time. So, look, to say because Mahomes didn't have a good game this game, he's eliminated. We didn't eliminate Brady for that. And we didn't eliminate Brady when he was having worse games earlier in the playoffs against worse teams. And so I think, again, where they're at in their careers right now, obviously, if you compare Mahomes to where Brady's end of career is, yeah, there's no case for Mahomes right now to be the GOAT. But if you are looking at it as, okay, here's where they are at the same point in their career. Mahomes has surpassed Brady in basically everything. And as long as he doesn't go on a 10-year drought of Super Bowls, he'll be ahead of Brady in that. And so I think he's got a few more probably in the next 10 years. But obviously, we'll have to wait and see. This is obviously projecting out. And so last one, man, we're going to stick on the Chiefs side, and we're going to talk about Travis Kelce, man. Obviously, he's got the big decision of whether he should retire or not. And so I'm going to talk about if I think he will and then if I think he should. And so to me, I don't think he should retire. I think obviously he has slowed down some. He's not the same player he was. And he talked about that on his podcast. He talked about how it's hard to not be able to do the things that, you used to, and not be able to dominate in the game the way you used to. And it's unfortunately for every athlete, it's a point we all get to. But we saw against the Texans just, 4 weeks ago, he can still have an incredible game if you don't pay attention to him. And he was still top 5 for tight ends in the league in receptions this year. So it's not like he has fallen off this massive cliff. Is he the guy he once was? Absolutely not. Is he still a good to great-ish tight end in this league? Yes. And to me, I just think I can't see him going out like this in the Super Bowl, where he had a terrible Super Bowl. And he did. He looked slow. And, we'll see. We'll see. He had a crazy last year with just everything. He seemed to be in. He's got what? He's in 2 shows, was traveling the world. Like, we'll see what he gets this offseason, gets some rest. But I think he'll be back, and I think he should come back. I think that when you look at what the Chiefs are building with Rasheed, with Xavier, there's a real good chance that Travis can kind of slot in as the third option on this team, second option. And he's still definitely good enough to where he can be great at that. And I think with Xavier Worthy becoming more kind of ingrained in the offense and him and Mahomes being better, opens up the top. Rasheed Rice, obviously, he's gonna draw attention, and all the attention that those 2 guys get means Travis Kelce has less, and he can still, like we saw against the Texans, he can still do damage with less attention on him. And so I think he comes back. I think he should come back. The only thing that sucks is I think that this year coming up is going to be the year where the Chiefs can get got. And then I would say probably we'll see Travis out of there after this year. So again, only time will tell, but that's just my thoughts on it. Next, man, look, we are going to move into the way too early top five going into next year's NFL season. So this is obviously not taking into account any drafts, free agency, anything like that. This is just looking at the teams, kind of projecting out what I think they're going to be doing and ranking them on that. And so number one, sticking with the Eagles, man, look, like I said, not too many free agents, not too many big name free agents who were big for them this year. Coupled like Zach Bond as a free agent. And so we'll see what they can do with him. He was obviously a big piece. So they've got a couple players where, they need, we'll see what happens, but mostly keeping the whole team intact. And like I said, when you're talking about the most talented team in the NFL, keeping the majority of it intact, you stay number one after you win a Super Bowl. Number two, Chiefs, man. Look, they were in the Super Bowl. I can't put them. I can't. Who do you guys want me to put above them? They beat the Bills in the playoffs. Who beat the Ravens? Who the Chiefs have beaten both those teams over the last 2 years. They have not shown me that they can beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. So I can't put them over the Chiefs. So the Chiefs are 2. 3 is the Bills. I think the Bills are. I would say if I had to pick a team coming out of the AFC next year, I would choose the Bills. Look, this was their rebuild year. A lot of people forget that this is the year where they took a lot of dead money on their cap to kind of clean up their books. And so this year is the year where they should be making their push. And I think they do. And again, if I had to pick a team, not the Chiefs to make it, which we'll see how the season unfolds, but I would choose the Bills coming out. Number 4 is the Ravens. Again, Lamar, Derrick Henry, we'll see what he looks like a year older, but Lamar, I mean, he's good for 12 wins every year, minimum. It seems like. So, one of the greatest winning percentages, still great team, great coach, defense that really started figuring it out towards the end of the year with their new DC. Now coming into the year, having had it figured out, have them at 4. And number 5 was tough, man, because I'm going to be honest, I couldn't find a team I really loved at the 5 spot, but because it's a top 5, I got to pick one. And so even with the coordinator turnover, I'm going to say the Lions at 5. Them getting healthy, Hutchinson back, who was an absolute game wrecker for them this year, getting a lot of those defensive players back. We'll see. Again, the coordinator stuff worries me, but again, very talented team. And I think Dan Campbell and the culture he's brought there, it's going to be hard for me to see them not being competitive every night. And so that's going to be our top 5. Again, this is pre-free agency, pre-draft, everything. We'll reevaluate when all that happens, but that would be my top 5 going into next year right now. And look, we're going to shift gears a little bit here. We're going to go to the NBA because, look, we just had the All-Star game last night. And we're going to talk about, the big thing that everybody's been talking about, the format. And what's good about it, what's bad about it, what I would change. And so starting with the good, man, look, the players played. And so this was one of the more competitive All-Star games in the last 20 years. And for all the old heads who think that the All-Star game just got bad when, the last few years because of all the threes and everything, I challenge you to go watch some of the early 2000s and, all those All-Star games back then. Go watch them because what you're going to see is no defense, guys running and dunking. The only difference is now is that when you don't play defense, guys jack up a bunch of threes and score way more because 3 is worth more than 2. But all y'all old heads who swear the All-Star game used to be this crazy competitive, and it's not like that anymore over the last couple of years, go watch those old games. Go watch those old games because you either, one, don't remember it right, which, look, nostalgia clouds all of us sometimes, I guess. Or 2, you have no idea what you're talking about. And so, but anyways, going back to it, one of the more competitive games. It's tough because I feel like I don't. I agree with Draymond in the fact of like the rising stars on Sunday, right? Like I don't like them being a part of like the All Star game. But I also feel like that's kind of one of the things that made it competitive, at least in those games, is because it's like you can't let the young kids beat you. Like you just can't let it happen. Um, so I think I don't know. I don't know what made it more competitive. Was it that? Was it just the target score? I think they could move the target score up some, maybe to like 50. Um, but yeah, I actually I didn't hate the format. I still like the East West. I feel like if they could do East West, or if they could do like I know I can't remember who was. I think maybe Dame had mentioned like the all snub team where the guys who were like the next bracket of guys who would have been all stars, like they get to be a team, and then you got like like you had this year just the different teams, and instead of the rising stars have them, because again then it'll be competitive because they're going to want to prove something to the all stars, like, oh no, this is why I should have been an all star. So I think that'll keep it competitive as well. um but yeah, I think yeah, I think there was good things from it. I didn't really like the format, but I liked the competitiveness. And so obviously, look, it's year one. They're going to tweak things. I do think they did a post about it where it was like in the 3 hours or something like that. It was like 35 minutes of basketball, which you got to fix that. Like, I get it. Like, you want to make All Star Game an event, but you still got to keep it about basketball, if that makes sense. Like you can still have the extended halftime show. Like I thought the halftime show was actually, or I don't know, I guess it wasn't really halftime, but whatever it was, where they had all the Bay Area artists come out. Like I thought that was incredible. It was one of the better shows I've ever seen as far as from a sport event. So I do like that, but I think you probably cut back on some of the commentary. I know we all love Kevin Hart. Cut back on some of that. Um, but I do think it's weird because I don't really like it, but if it works, it works. I personally would like them to go, if they could do East West with the target scores. Maybe you do East West and then you do the snub team and do it kind of the same way. But yeah, it's just kind of, I don't know. It's different. None of us really like change. I don't mind it, but if you keep the game competitive, I just want to see basketball. Like I like seeing Steph pull up from half court. Like that was incredible. And so yeah, I would just say people want to see it competitive, but also NBA players don't want to get hurt, which I get that as well. And look, next thing, man, big hot button thing is LeBron sits, and again, to me, this just screams of the like we don't like LeBron, so we're gonna make it an issue. Because let's be honest, man, if LeBron, because all of a sudden now everybody cares about Norman Powell, and 90% of y'all who are caring about Norman Powell probably couldn't tell me, if you probably couldn't pick him out of a lineup, probably never heard the name before, but somebody on Twitter dropped it, and so now that's the thing. And so what I'll say is this: if LeBron would have told you guys Wednesday he wasn't going to play, it would have been an issue. Because he's not competitive. He doesn't want, like, he's gonna make All-Star game about him because he's not gonna play in it. Look, I think he handled it perfectly. I think he woke up day of All-Star like, hey, I'm gonna give it a go, and it didn't happen. I think if he would have announced Wednesday he wasn't gonna do it, I think fans were gonna be disappointed and pissed off that they bought tickets because a lot of them wanted to see LeBron. And I think you're going to have people who are upset because he didn't play in it. And it's just what it is. Like, he's in year, 22? He's 40 years old. Like, he's been an all-star for 20 something years, y'all. Like, it's the same injury he sat out the last game of the regular season with. He's sat out multiple games with it over the last couple years, if I remember right. Like, it's not like it's something that just came out of thin air. And look, it seems like he genuinely, because look, LeBron, if there's one thing, and it's crazy to me because every one of y'all who are hating on this are the same people who are like, oh, he just cares about, stat padding and streaks and everything. You don't think LeBron wanted to keep his streak of all-star games started alive? Because it's the same people who will talk about the streaks he wants to keep alive and he's doing all that are the same people who are like, oh, well, yeah, he should have said it earlier. It's like, no, he wanted to play in it. He clearly wanted to play in it. He clearly woke up and it was just didn't happen. And it's weird because I'm not seeing the same outrage for Anthony Edwards, who we didn't find out wasn't playing until the game started, and Giannis, who also was a late scratch. Like, no other outrage. It's about LeBron. And so again, I get it. Like, the easiest way to get clicks is, hate on LeBron. And but to me, it's to the point, man. And this is just what the NBA social media and NBA Twitter has become, where it's, people are hating on him because he wasn't in a uniform for the picture, and forget that we've literally had Steve Nash, Shaq, Yao Ming, Kobe Bryant, and Brandon Roy all in the All-Star game pictures without jerseys on. But no, so it's about LeBron. He's making it about himself. Were those guys doing it? Because I didn't hear anybody talking about that. So again, man, I don't have a problem with it. I think he did genuinely want to play. And I think he wanted, he was going to give it a go if he could, and he couldn't, is what it is. He's 40, and he's been in the league 22 years, and it's a lingering injury. And so obviously it's ridiculous that we even have to talk about it, but because, you know, everybody has to get their LeBron hate in, we got to talk about it. And we got to set the record straight and tell people how it really is. And lastly, man, look, we're gonna finish it. We're going back to the NFL. Couple headlines, man. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers now out as the Jets quarterback. And so, big thing is, man, where's he going to go next? And so, I'm going to tell you where I think the best spots are going to be, and then I'm going to tell you where I actually think he's going to go. And so, to me, I think the best, I got 4 teams, and I'm going to list them in the order I think would be best. Number 1, Vikings. Now, I know it's going to be literally him following every step of Brett Favre's career, but when you look at the Vikings, man, like, they're a team that's set up to win now. I know you got J.J. McCarthy. You can keep him, you can sit him back behind there for one more year. I think, again, you kind of owe it to the guys like Justin Jefferson and, Aaron Jones and these guys who are, they're win now players, and they're not trying to deal with a rookie quarterback and the growth that comes with that and the growing pains that come with that. So I think that's, and look, you get Kevin O'Connell, who, again, I think he's one of these offensive genius coaches. So you get Aaron Rodgers with arguably the best offensive coach he's ever had, with some of the best weapons in the league and a great defense. Um, you know, again, I think that'd be the best spot. But with that becomes, again, you get the Brett Favre thing. Also, it comes with expectations. Like, we saw what Sam Darnold did with that team. So if Aaron Rodgers goes out there, and look, I'm not a big fan of, as players get older and want to still play, but aren't the same player, that hurting them and they're hurting their legacy. Like, I'm not a fan of that. I think it's ridiculous, because I think we would all want to do what we love to do as long as we can possibly do it. But the reality for Aaron Rodgers is, if he goes there and he doesn't put up numbers like Sam Darnold did, and they don't win like they did with Sam Darnold, it's going to be a hit on his legacy. And so number 2, I think, is actually probably the one I think he should do it, is the Colts. And for the reason being, there's no expectations there. Like, they have not been good. They need a quarterback. They have a solid team, and they have a bad division. And so I think that is a place where, again, you kind of get the best of both worlds, of no expectations, but you can actually do some winning there. 3 is the Niners. Look, you get Robert Saleh back on the defense, and so I think their defense is going to be really good again. You obviously have aging players on the offense and the defense, and so, again, another win now mode. And then it also gives you leverage against Brock Purdy, which, sucks to say, but it's a business. And right now, Brock Purdy can basically say whatever number he wants, and the Niners almost have to give it to him or risk him walking. And so I think you bring in Rodgers, you give yourself that flexibility of leverage of, okay, well, we got Aaron Rodgers here. So you can sign, we can extend you at 35 million a year, 40 million a year, or you can play out the rest of the year, but you're not going to start, and then we'll go from there. And so it just gives them that leverage, and I think it gives them, it always seemed like Shanahan and Rodgers and 49ers always just kind of was always a possibility. And with a win now team, like I think it's a risk that, you could probably take. And then lastly is the one that everybody's talking about. The Steelers don't like it. I don't think Aaron Rodgers can carry a mediocre to lower end offense, which is what the Niners are, or not the Niners, the Steelers are. Obviously, you'll get wins because of the defense. Like, he's not going to be worse than Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. And so, it'd be a 10-win season, maybe a playoff game, and you're out of there, and it's what it is. And again, kind of a legacy ding. To me, I think, as far as, like I said, I think he should go Vikings if he really wants to win. I think Vikings are the play. I think Colts are the play if he wants kind of the no downside, but some upside. Like, I don't think you can win a Super Bowl there, but you're definitely not going to get killed for not winning there. But I think two things. I honestly think he might not get signed. I think he might. Might be it. I think he might be done, and I don't think he wants to be. But I think it's just what the market's going to be. If he's not, then I would say the Steelers, just because I think it's just because it'd be the worst move to make, and I feel like it's just what's going to happen. So, so I would say Vikings and Colts, best situations, depending on what you're looking for. What in reality, what I think will happen is either Steelers or nobody. And I think it's just a sad kind of retirement and way to go for Rodgers. But look, man, that's all we got for today. Appreciate y'all as always. Look, like, subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Engage with us on social media. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, or I guess X, whatever it is. But look, as always, I appreciate y'all, and we'll see y'all next time.